Hi, everyone, and welcome to our monthly podcast with the one and only Miss Wonderful Sandy Miarecki, who is joining us from her humble abode, and we appreciate and salute her accordingly. She, as you know, is the acting Secretary of State for the true Republic. There are many imposters out there, but she is not. She is the legitimate one, folks, and that amongst all the many mousetraps of reasons why we keep having her back, and she keeps saying yes anyway. And we're honored to have her here to have our monthly symposium on what's going on in her world, as well as everything else we normally do. As always, if you're new to the podcast, please do like, subscribe, and share. It helps the channel grow and others to gain in the knowledge you're currently being afforded. Miss Sandy, how are you doing this fine day?
I'm doing well. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. So I add a little levity to our normal routine. So as always, ladies first, I will turn it over to you to kick things off. Where are we at present in the Republic in your estimation? Where do you see us going the rest of the year? And what things are you seeing that encourage you going forward?
Okay, well, the usual thing I do is a couple sentences at the beginning just to explain what the Republic is for anyone who has not seen any of our previous podcasts, which would be pretty hard to do at this point, as how many we've done. But essentially, our founding fathers gave us a republic with the Constitution. That's not what we originally had, of course. That didn't work out, and they had to do the Constitution to get it. And slowly over time, we were infiltrated by secret societies, bar attorneys, etc. We lost the republic in 1871. Fast forward, the White Hats, who we would call the White Hats today, is approaching several groups of patriots 2008 and said, can you re-inhabit the republic? Fast forward, we did, November of 2010. So that's the benchmark that everyone else has to, beat, essentially. So we did all that, filed all the paperwork in the international systems, etc. Went through a couple of infiltrations. We had another one just this past January. So if we ain't the authentic one, why do they keep attacking us? Is my question. So that's essentially who we are. We re-inhabited. That's what the word that we use, the original republic that was abandoned in 1871. So there's the few sentences at the beginning. What's been going on in the republic? Well, not a whole lot different than what we said before, other than the podcast that we did with General Vallalate got a lot of traction. So that was really interesting to see the comments, and people were writing in and signing up. And so that was, thank you, for allowing and for facilitating that.
Sure.
The splinter group is losing traction, as they always do in the Republic. It's a kind of a pattern now where they, blah, 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 this and that, and usually throwing around a lot of lies, which is, of course, when you're using your own God's discernment, is easy to see through. And that's what's happening now. And so the folks that were tricked by the splinter group are now coming back to the original Republic. We do not allow the folks that clearly went to the splinter group knowing what it was about and knowing that they were violating their oath to the Constitution and to the Republic. They can't come back. But the county assemblies, the folks that are in the county level that didn't know any better, they just were following the people that they had been following. But when they left the Republic, they didn't know they left the Republic. And so then they go, wait a minute, we're not in the original Republic anymore, you guys. And then the discussions, and then the vote, and they say, no, we signed up for the original Republic. And so that's what a lot of my time is spent now, is on podcasts with them, Zoom calls, essentially, answering their questions. Well, the splinter group says this. And I says, well, here's the truth. And I says, you have to use your own discernment. And they go, yeah, you're right. And I said, here's the proof. They don't give you proof. We give you proof. So that's a lot of what we've been doing lately.
Sounds good. Thank you, Sandy, as always. Well, as long as I've known you for the last, year and a half, and I've been blessed to collaborate with you, going back to, first of all, General Valley, we had a technical issue that day, so it kind of worked out in a sense that I was sort of in the background. You guys got to talk. The smartest thing I could do as a civilian is to shut up and let the two experts talk, which is what we're wholly tasked to do. It's one of the main reasons why you're here. And the audience doesn't need to hear from me. They need to hear from you. And so I'm happy to.
You were forced into it. You weren't planning on being.
I know, technology and technical issues had a say in the matter, but God used it de facto, even in the harm the enemy meant. Genesis 50:20, God used it for good because it kind of worked out, because you guys were just able to go back and forth and have a nice, spirited banter of substantiveness, which was great. And I look forward to bringing you both on again in the near future. We're going to talk.
Jen McInerney this time, since he couldn't come.
Yeah, well, he had some. Yeah, he would have been there. He had some personal issues he needed to attend to, so that made it a bit prohibitive. So we need to obviously honor that. But the goal was to have all three of you on, and God willing, that will happen, to your point, next time. So before we go forward, you mentioned to me offline something I think is also significant. Mm-hmm. In the as well, as I say before that, one of the things I've always known about you in the year and a half is that you're all about. I'm more of a Holy Spirit discernment, instinctual type of person, where you are in a complementary way are more scientific. It's about what you can prove, what you can estimate out, what you can point to that is for you more substantive, and that works for your training or personality, et cetera. And I think that's a nice combination for the audience to get a little bit of the melange of the two. So in that being said, with the Republic, you've always, come at it from a standpoint of things you can prove out, not speculative, which I think gives people in this particular part of the movement a lot of comfort and clarity, which we're all about. So I want to thank you for that. Segueing forward, you had told me off camera you have another member of the Republic that you would like us to bring on. Can you talk about this individual and what they contribute to the tenor of the movement, please?
Sure. So I was speaking of Kelby Smith, who is our Secretary of Treasury. He's been that way for, gosh, almost since the beginning. Hired by Tim Turner, so one of the folks that splintered off. But he's been, he saved the website. He did a bunch of things during the first infiltration and the second infiltration. But he's actually written a book for anyone that would like to take a look at this. Let's see if I can get it to not be glary. So what does it mean to be an American? So that's, it's you can get it Kindle, etc. But it just came out like a week or so ago. And of course I had to buy my own copy. So I had one in my library of all the books that I still have.
Yeah.
So, 50, 60, however many we're up to now, but I will get to there someday. And so he's pretty much talking about probably what someone would call state national, correcting your status. This is kind of like one of the things that a lot of folks talk about. He talks about state citizen, big S, big C, because you need to have the capitalization correct. Right. And what is the difference, and what are the advantages and disadvantages, why one is correct and one isn't, etc. And so he really lays it out there, and it's, I just started reading it, so I can only tell you what I've seen so far. And I've actually gone through his process of correcting my status. So right. I've got a little bit of a background in that already. But so, yeah, I think that your folks would enjoy talking to him. He also helps people to set up what I would call humanitarian religious foundations along those lines. And by virtue of its origins, or its mission, it falls under IRS other, which means you don't fall under the IRS. So everything is outside the IRS. No forms, no nothing. So for anyone who wants to look that up, it's 508C1A, and it says humanitarian religious organizations do not fall under any of these categories. So, that's the loophole, or whatever you want to call it. So that's where I think you would get a lot of real interesting conversation, if you have time to fit it into your schedule. I know it's hard.
Sure. Well, we'll do our best to accommodate you, Sandy, as always. Well worth the time. And then a question, a comment for you on the backs we just shared. There's a third title that I think kind of falls nicely within the confines of what you're talking about, non-citizen national, which kind of falls into that second bucket you were talking about, where you get the best of, correction, status correction, without any of the misnomers and mistakes that can happen in the trial and error process along the way. So the question being is, with, can you say it again, 508, what was that again, please?
So the part of the IRS code that
Mhm.
tells you that you're not part of the IRS code is
Right.
508C1A.
Oh, wait, see when okay, I'm gonna make a note
Yeah,
of that.
the way I remember that is CIA.
Ah, yeah, there you go. 508 CIA. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that to your knowledge? And if you don't know, that's fine. I'd be surprised if you didn't. But is that to your knowledge fall irrespective of the Johnson Act?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know, but Kelby would certainly know that.
Okay, that's something we can ask him. I'd like to know.
The one thing, just as a bottom line summary of this subject, is be very cautious of whatever process you're using to correct your status. A lot of folks have gotten into a lot of trouble because you're accidentally making yourself an illegal alien
Mhm.
in some of the processes. The way it's worded, you've actually renounced your American and US citizenship. And so you now no longer have a country. And so now you are here illegally. So just be cautious of that, especially in today's day of, deporting illegal aliens.
Right. Well, that's why Trump says, "Are you a citizen?"
Right.
And that's why I fall back to the non-citizen national.
Yeah.
Because
Or you say you're an American. You say
an
I am an
American.
Illinois citizen, as
Yeah,
I was born in Illinois.
right.
And by virtue of my Illinois citizenship, I am also an American citizen. As long as you
Correct.
stick to those terms, you're fine.
Yeah, or in my case, Massachusetts is my birthplace. Or if you move, I live on Tennessee State, but you're cementing your sovereignty as an American citizen on,
Where you
sovereign
were
soil
born. Mhm.
where you were born. Yeah, yeah. So no, that I'm glad you brought that up because those are important, what I call demarcation points. So, all right. So going back to a previous podcast, I think it's a good idea to visit it because it's been a minute since we've talked about this. You had alluded to, Sandy, in one of our previous podcasts many, many moons ago, earlier this year, that if we were not a republic by May, something was wrong. Yet we hear President Trump saying either we're a republic or we're not, which is a code. How do you interpret that? And what kind of modern day update would you give to that statement?
So we were all interpreting a lot of what he was saying literally. I was, it's like when he was saying, elections by Memorial Day. Well, the only way that that could be happening was be if the Republic was stood up again. So it's kind of like if, then. So it was like a logic train. Oh, and I do want to make one small correction to what you said about how I operate. I work on God's assignment, God's plan, you know. And then if someone challenges me on something, then I have to have the proof. And so when you have the splinter group that's making accusations, blah, 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 Sandy lies, the president's a dictator, Kelby is embezzling money. Oh, there's an update on that one too. So remind me.
Okay.
He's filed defamation lawsuits against the folks that defamed him and his business, or not business, but his ministry. So anyway, so there's, when then I say, no, we're not. And then you got to believe one or the other. Well, of course, the infiltrators, the splinter group says it with such enthusiasm and emotion, and and that we're all angry about it, and that all this money is being stolen, and it's like, what money? It's like, so then you've got to have the proof to say no. And so that's where the scientific logic, I have to have evidence, comes into play. But pretty much the Republic is guided by God's plan, God's discernment, God's assignments for us. So that was one correction.
Oh, yeah, sure. I wasn't trying to intimate that you're not a believer or anything like that. I just meant when it comes to, I always think of you as more left brain. So you go to the proof, logical, the paper trail, which is necessary for what you do, but by no means is that devoid of your faith component. But I appreciate the adjustment nonetheless. I'm sorry. Continue.
You now forget what we were talking about.
The gentleman, he's got a lawsuit countering what the libel.
Okay, right. That was Kelby. And then it was right before that led into that question. Oh, shoot.
That's okay. We'll circle back to it.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
Oh, it'll come around again. Yeah. So now that we sort of, because with time more gets revealed, obviously, whether we're talking about, the Republic, geopolitical, financial, whatever the case may be, are you still adjusting your position for taking him literally and seeing that
May and Trump.
May? Yes, that's what it was. Okay.
And it finally came back.
There we go.
Okay. So we were taking a lot of what Trump was saying and doing literally, when now the subtleties of what he's doing is starting to become apparent. So why was he saying that? What was his intention? We can only guess, right? But it's clear now there's a pattern I'm starting to pick up on, the left brain again, that can see the pattern, which is the waking up of Americans. I'd say probably only about 10% of us are actually awake in some spectrum, along the lines. I mean, you and me are like way out there in terms of the awakeness. And then there's all the other, grades. So he needs to wake everybody up. Now, I think 80% of the people know something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe only 20% are just living fat, dumb, and happy, as we say in the military. But we're seeing a definite, calculated almost plan to, and it's the same thing I say every time, that the white hats and the good guys are using the decisions with the least amount of violence and death. So what avoids a civil war? What avoids an uprising? That's the plan that they're following. And so things are going to change on a possibly hourly basis in order to get us to that level where 80% of the people actually have a clue as to what's going on wrong. And so that's the reason why I think that we did not stand up the Republic by May. And we may not even see it in his first administration, in the first 4 years. We have to think of every possible contingency. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen 10 years from now. We don't know. So that's all we can do, is just keep watching and try to see the signs. He just gave us a huge one with this Department of Defense becoming Department of War.
Mm-hmm.
That just so happens to be what they called it during the Republic in 1860. So is that part of us, or is that part of some other plan that he's doing? I don't know, but it looks like part of us at this point, because we still believe in the Republic that Trump is taking down the corporation one piece at a time, sometimes 2 pieces, 3 pieces at a time. But he's reshaping it, remolding it, essentially getting it to the point where the Republic can take over. Because I've said to you before, I don't know how to take down the CIA or the FBI. I mean, I'm just, just one person. So, Sandy, here's the Republic, go take down the corporation. Blah, blah, blah. So the fact that he's using the corporation and the corporation's assets to take down the corporation, we give him 2 thumbs up on that one. Because
Absolutely.
That's the one thing we don't have to do. So that's how we are reading all of what's going on now.
Sure. I mean, you have to, take your logic, your experience, militaristically, your deductive reasoning, being at the forefront as you are with the True Republic initiative, and be able to make certain deducements like you have. I would say what you just said is an important point about the Department of War done when we were Republic. It certainly would seem like it's going to be in the earlier part of his second term, based on what we're seeing as a declared statement. Well, that's all we can do, right? And stand in that belief, and then let God sort out the timing. But with that said, what other things do you see that kind of goes back to my previous question, because I asked you a bunch of stuff that you're encouraged by in addition to that? And there's been a sort of a lot of scuttlebutt about with respect to him, after 28 running again. We know that there, militaristically, a lot of presidents have doubles and, thing. And I'm not sure, it's not about the conspiratorial at this point, because it's already this part of the,
Well known.
it's well known. This is not nebulous information for our audiences who are aware and are seeking to become more aware. That's who we're catering to, ideally. So now that that's sort of common knowledge, with respect to Nasara happening and the elements that we're seeing with that, as well as an encouragement towards going back to Republic, would you say that, because there's sort of people like, oh, Vance is going to get, and I'm not so sure in this next term. I think it'll be Trump again. I just want to get your take on that.
There's so much central casting going on.
Mm.
Really? Because that's one of Trump's favorite phrases, right? It sounds like he's praising someone. He says, look at this person. Oh, he's pure central casting. Well, that means he's not real and he's an actor or an actress, and that's what central casting means. And you're like, really? Because you would have thought that's not a central casting kind of guy, but you're telling me he is? So, then you got to reassess. But so many people that are in his administration, the enemy, the folks, you look at the picture now and the picture from just 4 years ago, and you go, that's not the same guy. That's not the same girl. I have no idea who that is, So we don't know who's real and who's not. We do know, well, I know that at least back to the Reagan era, he had a double. I know somebody who met both at the same time. So
Wow.
That's kind of hard to dismiss.
Yeah.
How much past that, is it Carter? Is it, Nixon? Is it, I don't know. I don't know anything about past that, but that one I at least know that there was at least one double of Reagan. So they all have them. It makes sense from a security logic point of view, right? That sometimes you're going to have to put somebody out there that doesn't have to say a whole lot, doesn't have to do a whole lot, just has to be there, right, as a presence. And you don't need to take a chance with sending the real guy, right?
Right.
So, how many Trumps are there? I know we know at least 3 Bidens of this era, the one from the last 4 or 5 years. What happened to the original one? I don't know, but he got a funeral instead of a
2018.
Instead of a inauguration in 2020, so
Yeah.
or 2021. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is all this stuff. It's just like, I just pray someday we get to learn the truth. It's like, now we don't know the truth, we can guess. I'm not going to spend a ton of brain bites on that.
Right.
There's just too much other stuff to be working on. So, I'll think about it for like 5-10 seconds and go, all right, file it. We'll see what new information comes up later. Because it doesn't change what we're doing in the Republic. And that's, again, the mission for all the people that are watching this is, how do we reach those 80% that still need to be awakened? That's where we plant the seeds. We have to tell people about the Republic and about all the scams and the Federal Reserve being fraudulent and all that down the line. Otherwise, we're never going to get there. And you and I won't be here anymore. It'll still be, the next generation that's trying to handle this. It's like, we'd rather do it now.
Yeah.
Because we have the best chance of doing it now because we're the most educated.
Mm-hmm.
Educating the younger generations that are not too interested in what we're doing, that's going to be tougher. So maybe that's what the enemy's trying to do, is a wait and see, and try to wait us out.
I think they're going to become interested as those freedoms encroach on their doorstep, much like the rain effect we talked about in the past. You see a storm in the city, don't think about it, hits your neighbor, then it comes to you. It becomes rapid fire.
Mm-hmm.
So the late Reagan, when that assassination attempt, I think it was in 81, happened, I was real young. I was a little kid, so I wasn't real, obviously, compared to now, aware of what was going on. But my understanding is that's when they switched out the double. And that's why his second term, there were policies enacted that were different than in his first term. Is that plausible from your experience, from what you remember?
So I was in high school at the time. World history class, I believe. What a shock on that one. And the announcement came over the speaker, you know, that President Reagan was shot. He's in the hospital. They don't know if he's going to make it. And I'm like, you know, so you always remember like where you were when you find out about JFK, where you were when you find out about Reagan, right? I wasn't alive for JFK, but as a 16, 15, 16 years old, I guess, ish. And I'm looking at the picture, I mean, the Reagan we were seeing on television, of course, then he gets shot. And then the Reagan that's now after that. And I'm going, why does he look different? Was it because that was such a big deal, you know, getting shot and being in the hospital and all that? It's like, man, he really looks different. I noticed that as a 16-year-old. So did they switch him out? Maybe. I don't know. Good chance of it, I think, if he actually was killed and then the double took over. Or he was too injured to be the president anymore. And so he was, you know, just kind of like, you know, was retired to Montana or something, you know, and he could just live his life out. I don't know. I hope that we do find out someday. I would like to know the truth, the real truth about our American history, all the way back to, you know, 1620 or whatever, you know, when the colonists were coming over. I want to know the truth. I hope someone's been keeping notes because I want to read that books.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm with
Yeah.
you.
That's all I can tell you is I remember noticing the difference between the before Reagan getting shot and the after Reagan getting shot and going, that's really different, and not really connecting any dots.
Okay, fair enough. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
So anything else you want to add before we go forward?
Well, I did just hear, I haven't had a chance to research it yet, so take that with a grain of salt, but I did hear that from a pretty reputable source, though, so I will say that, that during the Reagan era, there actually was a huge illegal immigrant problem coming across the borders. And so back in the 1987 timeframe, I believe this was the John Birch Society folks that were taking an assessment of the entire southern border. And they said that it was just as bad then as it was 40 years later. And that it was the first time that amnesty was being offered to some of these folks coming across illegally. And that the John Birch folks said, this is just the first in a long line of amnesties, I fear. And here we are, 2 or 3 more amnesty bills or whatever you want to call it, you know, after that point. Of course, Trump's trying to undo all that, which if it's been going on for over 40 years, how long is it going to take to undo? So we have to give Trump a little bit of leeway when it comes to trying to solve that problem. Has he done a great job of shutting the border down? I think so. All you got to do is change the orders that you give to the Border Patrol.
Right.
And suddenly it's now, oh, you're allowed to arrest them and stop them. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that was going to fall my last question on this line of topic, which is about, what he's doing with New York and Chicago and LA, and he's just bringing back the National Guard. Is that part of the final cleanup process, or is it a continuation?
So it's interesting that we have always assumed / were told by the White Hats from the beginning that eventually there would be martial law, because there has to be, because you're removing a fake corporate crime syndicate pretending to be your government and putting in a real government, which is supposed to be us temporarily until we can hold elections. All we're doing is holding those seats and making sure that there is a lawful civil authority in place. We take oaths to the Constitution, the whole 9 yards. And so what's going to happen when that process occurs? A little bit of chaos, probably a lot of anger, depending upon which side you're on. And so martial law is going to be required. We kind of always assumed it was going to be like a light switch, right? It's going to be corporate's gone, bankrupt, and now republic, you're in. Well, what if they're doing it the option with the least amount of violence and death? Again, it's the same thing. As soon as you see them do something, you go, of course you're going to do it that way, which is one city at a time. Because it's the cities that are going to be the worst, I don't want to say offenders, but the worst situations, because they've been under blue Democrat control for decades. You know, your Atlantas, your Houstons, Austins, Chicago's, New York City's, LA, Seattle, and then dozens more, right? And so one or two cities at a time, brilliant. Because people don't get it all in a tizzy and an uproar, because it doesn't go past that level of, I need to do something, I need to react, I need to, right? It's to clean up crime. And that's working. Did you hear the statistics about DC?
I did.
Where they were having like, what is it, 1 to 2 murders a day? And now they haven't had one for like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Whoa. So, and that's just the 1 to 2 murders per day that they would admit to.
Right.
But it's probably 10. And they said, oh, that's some other thing like accidental or, you know, whatever. And so they're just reclassifying the crimes so that their numbers don't look so bad. So we got a lot of that going on. I think that eventually this is going to become quite normal in all the big cities that have these issues where crime has just been allowed to run rampant. And because that's the orders that the World Economic Forum and the folks above that, you know, in the evil empire are actually giving to these WEF graduates that are running most of the cities and states. You know, your DeSantis, your Abbott, Newsom,
Useless. Yeah.
new useless. But anyways, so I think it's great. I think it's, and I just pray that the military stays out of harm's way, that they do it slow enough, you know, the good guys,
Right.
implement this plan slow enough that it doesn't cause a reaction from the bad guys. I think that's where they're going with this.
I
think
totally
that they're
agree. Yeah.
eventually going to be in all the cities,
Yeah.
1 or 2 at a time.
Well, it's a controlled demolition was what I was thinking the whole time you were.
Yes.
And them coming back to LA, they've already been here. So it's,
Yes.
to me, it's like a reprise or a mop up, right? And as you said, you know, you keep he always does this beautifully, keep your friends close, enemies closer. Like you saw him have the dinner meeting with Bill Gates. I don't think that's the real Bill Gates. You're talking about.
It doesn't look like him.
Well, the real one I think was taken out, excuse me, here's my grammar, taken out in 2013 when he tried to, yeah, my mom would be like, the real one was taken out in 2013, I think in India when he tried his experimentation. Even a peace-loving people took him out because they know, hey, you're not going to go that far. Right. Useless, we were just talking about, he had underground tunnels in his house outside of Sacramento, you know, bathhouses, horrible things with kids and God knows what he was doing there. I think we have a pretty good idea of that. But I think the real one was taken out about 3 years ago. So there's, like you said, central casting. There's just continuation of that. But I agree. It's very encouraging. I think it's safe to say we're at the flood stage now, where it's just not dripping anymore. It's just, but you know, and the other thing too, as a Christian, you'll know, God has to move quickly in this season because he's got to Joel 2:25 retake back what the locust stole from us in time and money. So he's got to move his people along to get us to our purpose, destination, and whatever that looks like, the different talents he's all imbued us.
That's right.
Anyway, so thank you for that. I will give you a couple of things, Sandy, just to add some type of contribution on the financial front, which I think is pretty encouraging. So let me indulge you and pull that up here. Just give me a moment. Let me know when you can see this here, the subjective views post. Can you see that?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to make it figure. Hold on.
Oh, I will. I'm going to get to that. But
Okay.
I just wanted people to see the basically the narrative here. Subjective views, simply put, they have 35 trillion currency debt. Is it really debt? We believe it's about 10 billion is actually US debt, and the rest is deep state debt, which can be written off once they revalue the gold, which is exactly where Trump is headed. You see Besant appointing a new Fed chair. Notice who he's not talking about, Judy Shelton. Just a little tidbit there, right?
I'm hoping still that they're going to admit, that's not the right word, but that's as close as I can come, that the quote US debt is actually the Federal Reserve's debt, and the Federal Reserve is not part of the United States of America.
I think that's exactly where they're headed.
And my secret wish is that they go after
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
personal assets of all the previous Federal Reserve employees to pay off that debt. To start confiscating all their stuff and start paying off that debt, because it's their debt. And they've been stealing it this whole time.
Absolutely. If you look at the OFAC list I sent you, Sandy, a while ago, it's all of that, right? It's all the seizures of assets of every country, individuals listed right down, itemized alphabetically. So I think that's a function of the OFAC list going to be playing out for the public, to your point. But this has, obviously, it's in Russian from a couple of days ago from the time of this podcast, but it does have subtitles. So at least people have that. But check out what they're talking about with respect to the crypto market.
Америка прямо сейчас пытается поменять правила на рынке золота и криптовалют. Вспомните, какой у них долг. 35 триллионов долларов. В общем-то, это два альтернативных валютному сегменту мировых рынка. Действия Вашингтона в этом направлении отчетливо демонстрируют одну из главных американских задач. Они очень хотят решить проблему снижения доверия к доллару. США, как это было и в 30-е, и в 70-е годы, будут решать свои финансовые проблемы за счет всего мира, загоняя всех куда? В криптовалютное облако. Со временем, когда часть госдолга США будет размещена в стейблкоинах, США обесценит этот долг. Еще раз простыми словами. У них сейчас валютный 35-триллионный долг, они его загоняют в крипту, в облако, обесценивают и начинают с нуля. Это для тех, кто очень любит заниматься криптой.
So a couple key things, Sandy, there to discuss, obviously, before we go to the next slide. Notice you said rewriting gold. Talked about global currency. That's denoting the reset, obviously, for those of us who all know, which we do. Rewriting the debt. So that's why I waited for you to kind of share your thoughts and then play that, because you can see that's exactly where that's headed. Notice, I don't know if it's this week or coming up next week. It's pretty soon this month. Xi and Putin, the Republic side, are meeting independent of Modi. That's all just part of the narrative for BRICS. Isolate them out, and as he continues the peace and trade deals going forward, that will reamalgamate. But they're all in cahoots. I think we're pretty aware of that. So I will show you the next one here. Let me.
I'm still trying to figure out, how does the Putin-Trump meeting in Alaska fit into all of this?
That's a good question. That is a good question.
Because we haven't really heard much about that meeting. On purpose, I would imagine.
Oh, I'm sure. It's probably being timed for a later specific date, to your point. Interestingly enough, today, this came out on Cillian and X, Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, who's been talking about bringing in a lot of Christian Africans to support them. Again, I think this is all part of BRICS CHAKRA, as well as we free Africa, a lot of the debt forgiveness. He said, like you can see, we're important millions of Africans, Kurds, Muslims to make Japan more tolerant, has announced his resignation, which is going to be interesting to see who replaces him and why now. To me, that's kind of a Kim Clement why now moment, if you will. The next one, if you can see a gold telegraph, you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Dollar's lost nearly 45% of its purchasing power against gold over the last year. Read that again. two comms there. Trump, obviously number 45. Number two, devaluing the Federal Reserve. He's going to audit Fort Knox, audit the Fed, get everybody on the same page, bring in a new Fed chair, we believe, and hope will be G. Shelton, revalues gold. And there you have the gold standard as part of the reset, particularly for the US note, not the Federal Reserve. Key right there, as you know. He spoke this morning to a community of believers. Speaking of that earlier in our podcast, One Nation Under God, he's launching legislation that allows, going back to the Republic, I think is a good sign for you, the Constitutional Republic, going back to our forefathers' deity and biblical precepts, allowing for more religious freedom, particularly for more Christians. Notice he talked about, you hear about anti-Semitism, but you don't hear about anti-Christianity. I was music to my ears to hear that. And he talked a lot this morning. I watched it briefly on Fox Online. Not that I subscribe to any of the main channels. That's just where I happen to be. Particularly, I like RSBN, but that's a side note. Calling on Americans. Sorry?
Go ahead and read that because it's very, very critical. Go ahead.
Trump calling on Americans to pray for nation as we approach 250th birthday, One Nation Under God. He will announce the launch of Americans Pray today at the Museum of the Bible. This program calls on the American people to pray for the country, for the faith initiative leading into the nation's 250th birthday. Your turn.
We're already doing it in the Republic every day. So our states have adopted a day of the month. And so 30 states essentially, you know, have I would say 30 healthiest states are doing the podcast or, you know, prayer call, whatever you want to call it. We're calling it the Jubilee prayer call.
Mm-hmm.
And we are covering this Republic and the American people in prayer every day from now until at least July 4th of next year.
Nice.
So, you know, I can't remember exactly. Let's just say Rhode Island is the first, Connecticut is the second, Delaware is the third, et cetera, you know, and so we've all picked states like that. And then we just hold a prayer call and whoever wants to come can come and bring a prayer, listen, pray with us. Don't talk, whatever you want to do. It's very much a, I don't want to say free agent, freewheeling. It's what is the word I'm looking for here? No plan. In other words, it's just whatever happens. Yeah. Spontaneous. There's the word I couldn't.
There you go. Yeah.
Very spontaneous event.
Sure.
So whatever God is telling you to pray, or not. And so that's what we're doing. And we've been doing it roughly since July 4th. We, you know, fits and starts while we were getting all the dates signed up, but now we're there. And then the other 20 states that are in various stages of maturity in this Republic are doubling up or tripling up with the other states. So it's pretty powerful.
Fabulous. Thank you for that. To me, that's just part of the organic church, going back to our roots, home-based churches, which I'm very much a fan of. So it's getting back to basics, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other quick articles here. I thought this was interesting. Please forgive the expletives. Politico reports, leading report on X, that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is threatening to punch housing Fed czar Bill Pulte in the lovely face, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. I don't know if that's more hearsay or actual, but interesting nonetheless. And then real quick here.
Central casting.
Central casting. Yep. Some people have opinions about who Bessent might really be, speaking of which. Market update today, Bitcoin standard, corporate Bitcoin treasuries expand worldwide. Crypto treasuries have been ramping abroad with respect to Hong Kong-based Hashkey. Newest firm to raise $500 million to invest across the sector. In addition, Altvest Capital announced $210 million plan to become Africa. Here we go again, first public Bitcoin treasury company, and as well as Japanese corporation. We just talked about Japan. MetaPlanet added $15 million to its $2.2 billion reserve this week. So bottom line is this becomes worldwide awareness for Bitcoin, and key here, Sandy, XRP. You'll note that in early November, I believe it's either the 4th or 6th, is going to be international ISO 20022 rollout for the public. Now, does not mean we're waiting that long for the reset. That's for the normies to become fully aware of basically the new system. We've crossed over that Rubicon for the public to accept. Right. So I think that's an encouraging demarcation there.
If I could bring up something, we all know about the SWIFT system and how corrupt that is. There's so many backdoors, and the cabal can reach in and steal a transaction either at the initiation stage, in the en route stage, or at the final destination stage. And they've done it multiple times.
Mhm.
Billions, trillions, who knows how much has actually been stolen. I'm not talking about fees. I'm talking about like a $1 billion transfer just doesn't make it to the destination. You're like, where did it go? And they
Yeah.
can't find it because it went out a back door. So my point on that was SWIFT is very, very corrupt, but it has been the, system for all this time. QFS, of course, we talk about the quantum financial system, and that it has been instituted now worldwide. It was in beta testing till about maybe a year ago or so, and then they started to, connect the various countries, but it still works on the SWIFT backbone. So is there still a way to reach in and grab money out of the QFS system? Well, with the quantum and the blockchain and all the other stuff that's protecting it, you would think that it would be okay. The eventual plan is to not have the SWIFT backbone, but to have QFS on its own. When is that going to happen? We're waiting for that announcement. So there's like all kinds of things in the works. But again, I'll emphasize that you don't have to sign up for your QFS account. You already have it. Don't get scammed. Don't pay any money to get your QFS account. It's totally scam. So don't do that. Just wait for your turn. It'll come.
Yep. And we don't get involved in that on our side either. As you know, we didn't talk about, there's nothing to talk about. We also encourage people, Sandy, I'm doing this as a housekeeping thing since you brought it up. You don't need to pay for consultations for the bank exchange. The bank is not going to bail in on your stuff because they've been held in check. I think the key thing, Sandy, I was just talking about this. Funny you should bring this up as a counterpoint or complement to what you said is a lot of the stuff that was holding up some of these payments that many of us are anticipating is the hedge fund people. They've been dealt with. He's mentioned that in a month ago. He mentioned, some of the big players. Larry, I can't remember his last name, Burroughs. Huh?
Think.
Well, yeah. That's another one. BlackRock. No, but Bellows, some of the big hedge fund names, he just dropped them. He wouldn't have done that if they weren't already dealt with. But that was holding up in part of the symphony of things, what we've been anticipating. That has now been dealt with, which effectuates us when we get to the banks as it relates to the bail-in concern people have. Don't think they'll need to worry about that. But you don't need to pay for an exchange. It's easy. It was easy to buy. It'll be easier to sell. Common sense, critical thinking would tell you the banks are not going to make it difficult because it de-incentivizes you to work with them, right? And then there's some other stuff about the interest rates. You'll find this came from one of our team members who's been on our podcast before. Maybe you've seen him, incognito, Mr. B. Story that no one's talking about is because all the pundits want to say that we are in inflation, even after the Fed said it may need to cut rates. Meanwhile, the 10-year and the 30-year Treasury markets or bond yields is getting very close to under 4%. That's pretty significant. That's a panic move. What everyone gets wrong is that the bond market that sets rates, not the Fed. The Fed generally follows the bond market, which makes a good argument that the Fed will cut at least a quarter basis point. When? February, on the 17th of September. 17th.
19th.
When you know. We just talked about 45. All this stuff just correlates beautifully. So it's you just can't make this stuff up. So pretty exciting. Sandy, as we close up for today, I want to respect your time and our audience per usual. We will include the Republics for the links. If you would like, I will include the link for the book as well so that your colleague gets due credit prior to bringing them on. Last thoughts that you have for the audience for us today, please.
Oh, goodness. You can get involved in the Republic at any level for the most part. This is the government. You don't pay a membership fee to be here. We do have our website, republic4usa.org. He's going to have that in the credits. Where did that come from? In the
central casting. Am I part of that?
Central casting.
Oh,
I know. So republic, FORUSA.org. And that'll take you to our members website and register. I know it's a corporate word, but we can't think of a better one that's still not corporate. And volunteer or don't volunteer. I mean, just signing up gets you into the newsletter. And so you at least get a weekly snippet of what's going on in the Republic. This podcast link will be there probably next Monday. And, get involved however you feel. God's going to put it on your heart to get involved. That's how I got involved. As I was getting fired from the Air Force Academy for helping the students with their COVID religious exemptions, I was asking God, what do you want me to do next? I have no idea. And randomly people came into my life from the Republic, and I heard the key words and I said, are you with the Republic? Yes, we are. And I'm like, oh my God. So then I figured it out. That's where God wanted me to go. And so that's why I'm here. That's going to happen to you as well at various levels. And so if you're feeling like you need to get involved, that's where you start. republic4usa.org. Register, get signed up so that we can get you into the newsletter and get you into a conversation with your Republic governor, and take it from there. Change your mind, don't change your mind, whatever you want to do after that. So, as always,
Absolutely.
great talking.
Oh, yeah, it's great talk. Always, Sandy. And again, we'll leave those links for the Republic in the description. And if you want to give me the book link, I'll put that up as well. And just to reprise what I didn't do in the beginning, so we clean it up. In case you did not know, Ms. Miarecki is a retired lieutenant colonel for the Air Force, test pilot, best of the best, and is also the acting Secretary of State in Texas for the Real Republic. And as always, we're honored to have you here. Thank you, Sandy, for your time. We appreciate it. God bless. Have a great rest of your week. We'll look forward to convening with you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.